pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God. Okay, that will take us into our proclamations. First up, so our first proclamation is a proclamation declaring September as Juror Appreciation Month. Whereas, the right to a trial by jury is one of the core values of the American judicial system. Service by citizens as jurors is indispensable to the judicial system, and the privilege and duty of serving as a juror is fundamental to democracy as the right to vote. And whereas, the Wisconsin State Court System, partnering with the State Bar of Wisconsin, has established September as Juror Appreciation Month to set aside a time to publicly recognize the contribution of those who are summoned and serve as jurors, to improve communication with jurors and employers, to disseminate a positive message about jury service, and to reinforce public confidence in the justice system. And whereas the Manitowoc County Board of Supervisors supports the goal of educating the public about jury duty and the importance of jury service, applauds the efforts of jurors who fulfill their civic duty, and believes that all jurors should be treated with respect and in a way so that their service is not unduly burdensome. Now, therefore, we, Bob Ziegelbauer, Manitowoc County Executive, and Tyler Martell, Manitowoc County Board Chair, along with the Manitowoc County Board of Supervisors, hereby proclaim the month of September as Juror Appreciation Month in Manitowoc County. Next, we will have a proclamation commending Michaela Bell as Manitowoc County Fairest of the Fair. Whereas, Michaela Bell, a native of the Kiel area, has reigned as Manitowoc County's Fairest of the Fair. And whereas the Fairest of the Fair is a demanding position that requires time, patience, and a willingness to share one's experiences with many people. And whereas Michaela Bell has done an outstanding job in representing Manitowoc County when appearing at various events and parades during her reign. And whereas Michaela Bell has been an active representative of Manitowoc County agriculture and has gained and shared valuable knowledge and experiences. And whereas Michaela Bell has inspired others to promote agriculture, the Manitowoc County Fair, and the Manitowoc County Fairest of the Fair position for years to come. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the Manitowoc County Board of Supervisors, County Executive, Manitowoc County Public Works Committee, and the Manitowoc County Expo Ice Center Board commends Michaela for her time, effort, and the positive impact of her reign as the 2024 Manitowoc County Fairest of the Fair.
First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for proclaiming me as the Manitowoc County Fairest of the Fair. I'd also like to thank you all for the continuous support that you show the Expo Center, the Ice Center, and of course the Manitowoc County Fair. I hope you all will join me this week at the Manitowoc County Fair, where we offer various opportunities for families such as the Ag Adventure Tent, the carnival rides, and much, much more. So thank you.
And our last proclamation this evening is for Mr. Melvin Walk. So if you'd like to join me up at the podium. Whereas Melvin Walk was appointed to the Planning and Park Commission on October 17, 1978. And whereas Melvin Walk served as an officer of the Planning and Park Commission in many different posts, including vice chairperson and chairperson. And whereas Melvin Walk was an integral part of the Planning and Park Commission providing oversight for departmental policies, including the development of the county's park system and professional planning services necessary to promote the public health and safety of the county's residents, and to encourage planned and orderly land use development, to protect property values in the property tax base, and to achieve the purposes for which Planning and Zoning Authority has been granted in the county pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 59.69 and other statutes. And whereas Melvin Walk was honored on July 22, 2024, with an appreciation plaque for his years of service and dedication to the Manitowoc County Planning and Park Commission and his betterment for the citizens of Manitowoc County. And whereas Melvin Walk has served selflessly and with great enthusiasm for the Manitowoc County Planning and Park Commission for 46 years. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Manitowoc County Executive Bob Zickelbauer and Manitowoc County Board Chair Tyler Martell and the Manitowoc County Board of Supervisors hereby recognize and thank Melvin for his many years of service as a member of the Manitowoc County Planning and Park Commission.
Yes, I was appointed to the Manitowoc County Park and Planning, and I have a letter here to prove it, which was sent to me on October 19, 1978, and I'll just read a very short portion of it. The appointment was confirmed by the County Board of Supervisors at their October 17, 1978 session. May we add our personal congratulations. Sincerely yours, John Cornelli, County Clerk. Well, anyway, being on the Planning and Zoning Committee, while I was there, we had 4 different directors, and they all done what directors do. They had their job, and then they also had department heads, and of course they had the staff. And even in those earlier years, if I may call it that, they always had Manitowoc County in their mind. That's what they were there for, to treat the people and the county in a decent manner. Well, anyway, so we go 1, 2, 3, then we go to the 4th director, and of course, they're still doing the same thing. And may I add, they're doing it very well. One other thing, over that course of time, there are a lot of new people that were appointed to the positions as they left. And so there were a lot of good people from throughout Manitowoc County that I got to know because of on this committee. Anyway, there was one individual that I just remembered today when I was going over this a little bit, and she's here tonight, and that's Susie. Because when she was on the committee, I had to teach her how to say Town of Schleswig. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you everybody. Next up we have our presentation of the 2023 Comprehensive Audit. Brian, if you'd like to join us up at the podium.
Good evening. I'm Brian Grunewald with CLA. Thanks for having me here this evening. And before I get started, I do want to thank JJ Gutman and the rest of your team for the cooperation and assistance that we received throughout the audit process. Certainly a lot of time and energy goes into that process. We ask for a lot of information, and again, certainly appreciate all the assistance that we received throughout that process. In terms of the audit, I just want to give you a real brief overview. I think you each have access to the audited financial statements, very large document, a lot of financial information in there. In terms of the discussion this evening, I just prepared a brief PowerPoint. I'm going to walk you through that here this evening. Just wanted to give you a brief overview of the financial results, and certainly as we go through that, certainly please feel free to ask questions. Included within the financial statements is our independent auditor's report. I just want to give you a little background with regards to responsibilities as part of that. And as a reminder, management is responsible for the preparation of the financial statements. They are also responsible for the internal control structure, essentially the design, how things are done from an accounting standpoint, how you pay your bills, how you handle your cash. Our role as auditors is to issue an opinion on your financial statements. We've done that, and I'll share the results here in a second. In order to do that, we consider your internal control structure. Again, think about how things are done. We look at how you're handling your cash, how you're paying your bills. We use that to design and plan audit procedures and tests along the way, which allows us to issue our opinion. In terms of the results, you can see on the slide here, the auditor's opinion is considered to be an unmodified opinion. Essentially means that I believe that your financial statements are complete and accurate and in accordance with our professional standards. That's exactly what you should hope or expect to see. And I just want to reiterate, that is the highest level of assurance that you can receive as part of the audit process. Then, as a reminder, in addition to our review and our audit opinion, the county also voluntarily goes through an additional review. They voluntarily submit their financial statements to the Government Finance Officers Association. As a part of that process, they do need to include some additional information, some additional introductory and statistical information. And as a part of that, the Government Finance Officers does their review, and they've issued a Certificate of Achievements for Excellence in Financial Reporting. You can see this is labeled as 2022. That's the most recent award that you've received. That is included within your comprehensive financial report. And JJ did submit the 2023 financial statements to the Government Finance Officers Association. And based on that process, they'll go through, do their review, and I certainly expect that they will continue to issue that certificate going forward once they complete the review of 2023. And again, just want to congratulate you for that. It's actually the 28th year in a row that you've received that, so that's quite the streak you've got going on there. So congratulations on that. This next slide, I just wanted to walk through some of the required communications. As part of the audit process, there are standard things that we're required to communicate. You can see the topics listed on the slide here in front of you. Very standardized language. The accounting terminology is very consistent with what you've seen in the past. A couple highlights in terms of some of the things that have changed this year. There's references to accounting policies. Several places throughout your financial statements reference a new governmental accounting standard. It's referred to as Governmental Accounting Standards Board Statement Number 96, and it deals with information technology agreements. We implemented that because based on regulatory requirements, we needed to. You're required to. So all governments who go through that process have also implemented that standard. And then also just want to point out in terms of audit adjustments on the bottom row, all adjustments that I'm aware of are included within your financial statements. And again, I do believe that those are complete and accurate. Then I just wanted to move briefly into giving you an overview of some of the key financial information. And as I go through this, I always like to remind you the size of the county and with the number of services that you provide. Think of everything from highway services, your county road and bridge fund, human services. It is challenging to get all of those activities moving positively and continuing that on an ongoing basis. So as we go through this, I mean, certainly I just want to highlight there are definitely some positives along the way. I know there's going to be some emphasis and probably some questions related to human service. I know you talked a lot about that, but I do want to reiterate and point out some of the positives here along the way as well. This first slide is focusing on your general fund, and it's showing you your reserve balances at the end of 2023 in comparison to the end of 2022. If you jump all the way to the bottom, you can see the reference to the total for your general fund. Your total balance at the end of 2022 was 5.2 million. That did increase 97,000 during 2023, up to a balance of 5,318,000. You can see that for the end of 2023. There are a lot of different categories here. If you think of those different categories and you see the references to restricted balances and committed balances, what those really are is dollars that have been set aside for those specific purposes. The category that tends to get the most attention by places like bond rating agencies is that unassigned balance. That's really what's left, or the portion that's not been earmarked for other purposes. Also wanted to highlight or emphasize, you can see the change in that balance, that unassigned balance. At the end of 2022, you're at 1,988,000. That did increase, and you can see the balance at the end of 2023, 2,182,000. Again, so just wanted to highlight the positives within your general fund. And if anyone has any questions as I'm going through this, certainly please feel free to ask. Any thoughts or questions on your general fund before I move on? Okay, then I'm going to keep going. This next slide focuses on your special revenue funds. If you work down the slide, you can see the different funds, and you can also see again a comparison of the balances end of 22 versus end of 23. Certainly as you go through this, if you again jump down to the total for your special revenue funds, at the end of 22, you were at 6.1 million. That did decrease down to 4.6 million. I want to highlight a few of the different funds throughout this. About a third of the way down, you'll see a reference to the opioid settlement. Just a reminder that you do have 563,000 available as a result of that opioid settlement. The line below that, recycling, you can see that number in brackets, the 40,002 in brackets. That is in a deficit position at the end of 2023. As we move further down the last three lines, you'll see the reference to the ARPA fund. I'm going to talk a little bit more about ARPA as we move through this. At the end of 2023, your fund balance reserves were 519,000. Now the fund balance portion of your reserves, that's built up based on the interest earnings that you've earned while you've received that cash invested the last couple of years. So certainly positive that your ARPA balance is built up to 519,000. And I also want to reiterate or point out that in addition to those fund balance reserves, in the ARPA fund, you also have an additional 5.7 million that's still left on hand. It is not reported as fund balance, it's reported in your cash balances. The reason it's not reported as fund balance is because in order to recognize that, there are compliance requirements you have to follow. When you receive that grant money, you have to follow compliance requirements, eligibility requirements, and reporting requirements. So once you do that, you can spend those dollars. I know the county's got a plan on that. I just wanted to point out that they also have that 5.7 million. Then I'm going to go to County Road and Bridges next. You can see that balance at the end of 2023 and how that has increased, just over $1 million left at the end of 2023. As a reminder, during 2023, you did issue approximately $2.5 million in debt. Of that debt issue, again, you can see you have approximately $1 million left at the end of 2023, and really normal timing of when you issue the debt versus timing of when you identify projects and spend that money. So certainly positive to have $1 million left. And then last but not least, certainly want to talk about the Human Service Fund. And on the slide here, you'll see the comparison of your reserves at the end of 22 versus the end of 23. At the end of 22 being positive 598. At the end of 2023, you are in a deficit of 1.6 million. I do want to talk about the fund balance levels and a little bit more of the history on that. If I go all the way back to 2017, at the end of 2017, you were in a deficit position then as well of approximately 214,000. From 2018 to 2021, you consistently increased the amount of reserves and fund balance that you had left. At the end of 2020, for example, you had built that up to 1.6 million. And at the end of 2021, you really peaked at 2.3 million. So just walking through some of the history there. Obviously the last couple of years, and I know you've talked a lot about the expenses and what's been happening with your expenses. That's really been driving what's happened with your fund balance reserves. As your expenses have gone up, they've exceeded your revenues, and you're using those fund balance reserves, and it's put you in this deficit position Again, that deficit as of 12/31/23 being the 1.7 million. Again, I know you've talked a lot about the expense side, so I can certainly talk more about that if you'd like me to. I would describe it as the pace of the increase in the demand for services, along with the pace of the increase in your expenses, obviously put a lot of pressure on your budget, and your revenues couldn't keep track. One of the things that I personally find interesting is when you think of your human service department and how you're financing those expenses, what I looked at is how much of the revenues in that fund are tax revenue, what's coming from your tax levy. And again, just want to give you some perspective on this. So for 2023, and this is not in the slides, so I'm going to quote some statistics here. The tax revenue in that fund was less than 6.2 million versus your total revenues of 30.2 million. So you're at about 20% in terms of your tax revenue versus your total revenue. If you compare that to other counties around you, and I looked at 4 other local counties around you, their percentages are much higher, meaning they have more tax levy that's being directed towards that fund. And again, I think that just shows you what's been happening when you look at expenses versus revenues, and your revenues not keeping pace. Does that make sense? When do you want me to talk about that further? Okay, I know you've talked a lot about that. Anything else with human services in general you'd like me to discuss or talk about? Yeah.
I think what you were describing is that incrementally, the pace at which the fund balance was meeting the demands for human services.
Yeah.
Has that changed in terms of percentage or demands?
I would describe it as, again, I was really trying to highlight or emphasize the reason you've gone down on your fund balance in the last few years is because your expenses have gone up so fast, again, driven by the services that you have. And I only have the last 3 years expense numbers, but for 2021, your total expenses were 25 million. For 2022, they jumped up to 27.9, so increasing 2.9 million. And then for 2022, or for 23, they jumped up to 32.5. So again, that increase in the expenses just put too much pressure on your budget.
Got about 4 other counties. What percentage are they using to direct towards human services?
Okay, so again, I'll look at your neighbors. Sheboygan is using 31%. Ozaki is using about 24%. Calumet has about 27%. And Fond du Lac has about 27%. And I will just put a caveat out there. That's a general percentage, and they could be doing things a little bit differently. I know some of them are with regards to what they're levying and some of the other accounting transactions that they're doing. But my purpose in saying that is the general trend is they are levying and putting more revenue in that fund. You've been conservative with your budget, and again, the expenses have just crept up. And now because of that, you've got this need for more revenues. So I know that's all been explained in detail. I'm just elaborating on that and saying that I agree with what's happened. Any other thoughts or questions on that? Okay.
Audit is conducted every year,
Yes.
yet nothing was noticed with that increasing expenditures in previous years.
I will say the information is in your audit financial statements. I come and do the presentation. I do go through this. As I mentioned last year, I did a similar chart like this last year, so it showed the comparison of 21 versus 22. So it did show the decrease in fund balance. I feel like it might not have caught as much attention because it wasn't in that deficit position, even though it was using fund balance. That's just a personal thought, but. Certainly the information was there. If I do step back and look at the 2023 budget, you also did have a budgeted use of fund balance in that fund for 23 as well. But again, what happened is your actual expenses and your actual use of fund balance, it just far exceeded your budget. I know I have those written here somewhere. I think your budgeted use for 2023 was 900,000. Your actual was 2.3 million. So again, it's just that overage in that budget, again, put a lot of pressure on your fund balance reserves. Any other thoughts or comments before I move on? Okay. And then financially, in addition to those fund balance reserves, one of the things that I always like to look at financially when I think of financial condition is the amount of long-term debt that you have outstanding. Some of the debt information that I've got included in the slides here, you can see more financial information in your footnotes on pages 72 to 74. So there's a lot of information there. What I have on the slides here is just the trend of what your overall outstanding general obligation debt balance has been at the end of each of the last few years. And again, you can see your trend going back to 2019. You had approximately 28.7 million outstanding. You can see how that carries forward. At the end of 22, you had approximately 22.7 million outstanding. And then as a reminder, during 2023, you did issue 2.5 million of debt, but you also repaid principal of 1.9 million, which left you with an ending balance of 23.1 million in terms of your outstanding principal balance at the end of the year. So again, just showing you your trend there. And then I personally like the information on this next slide because it gives you some perspective. How much outstanding debt do you have? And I'm really comparing it to two different factors. The blue line on the slide that you have is in reference to the statutory debt limit. So there is another footnote in your financial statements. There's a statutory debt limit on how much general obligation debt you can have. That's based on the equalized value of the property within the community or in the county. And you can see as a percentage how much your outstanding debt is of that legal limit. And you can also see the trend. Back in 2019, you were at about 10%. That has continued to decrease, primarily because there's been a significant increase in the equalized value of the property. And you can see at the end of 2023, you're at 5.5%. So again, noteworthy on the decrease there. And then the other thing that I like to do is the green line. The green line is comparing your principal and interest payments on an annual basis versus the rest of the expenses in all of your governmental funds. The concept being how much of your budget is tied up and being used for principal and interest. And again, you see the trend. You were at 6.5%. You end 2023 at 3.8%. My personal opinion on both of those is you're at very low percentages. You're at a very low percentage of the statutory debt limit, meaning a lot of other counties will have a higher percentage, meaning more debt. And you're also using a very small percentage of your budget, 3.8%, in terms of being needed to repay principal and interest. Any thoughts or questions or comments on that? You could go look at the federal government and see how much of the budget is spent on principal and interest. Okay, so that's all I had financially. The other just piece of information that I just wanted to share, and certainly we'll go through with this in more detail with JJ and your team. There's been a lot going on. The two highlights to me are the grant funding, the ARPA funding, the rescue plan funding being available. Again, as I mentioned earlier, from a budget perspective, you do have that 5.7 million available as of the end of 2023. Again, I know you've got a plan for how that's being spent. From an audit standpoint, I think of those compliance requirements, compliance, eligibility, reporting requirements, and just to provide some assurance, we do look at that as part of the audit process. We do test that as part of the audit process. And then just the other reminder on the other side here, you can see the reference to new accounting standards. Not going to get into a lot of details here, but there certainly has been a lot of changes in the regulatory environment and the rules in terms of what we have to follow to issue your financial statements. At the beginning of the discussion, I referenced Governmental Accounting Standard number 96. This slide shows the three most recent standards that are issued, being 101, 102, and 103. We will work with your team to share information on those standards, talk about the requirements, and make sure that they are properly implemented when they are required to be implemented. They are due or have to be implemented in the next few years. GASB 101 has to be implemented in 2024. 103 extends out to 2026. So we do have a little time with that. So just wanted to give you some perspective on that. And that's all the comments that I had prepared. Any thoughts, questions, concerns?
So on your general obligation slides, you're covering 4 years, like 2019 to 2023. When you come back next year,
Yep.
On the fund balance comparison, could you also do a longer span there?
We certainly
Just
could.
the 2 years?
Yeah. I'm assuming you're interested in general fund as well as other?
Right.
Yeah, we certainly could. I will say my general reaction to that is your general fund has been a little bit more consistent because of how you monitor and how you monitor that budget, meaning it hasn't fluctuated as much. The one that's fluctuated more has been the human service, which we talked about, but certainly can do that. Any other thoughts or questions? Okay, sounds good. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Brian. Okay, that will take us into public comment. Members of the public are invited to speak for up to 3 minutes on matters pertaining to county business. Anybody from the public wishing to speak tonight?
Patricia Klein. Alrighty. While touring Israel 27 years ago, I had a chance meeting with a Jewish rabbi who had just returned from Russia. He shared how he and other rabbis prepared Jews to return to Israel from other countries so there were no unnecessary disruptions upon arrival. Before returning to Israel, they are vetted and taught how to speak. That's what I was trying to do. How's that? Okay, should I start over? Okay. While touring Israel 27 years ago, I had a chance meeting with a Jewish rabbi who had just returned from Russia. He shared how he and other rabbis prepared Jews to return to Israel from other countries so there were no unnecessary disruptions upon arrival. Before returning to Israel, they are vetted and taught how to speak biblical Hebrew. While this is being accomplished, homes are built and jobs created in Israel, so upon arrival they are quickly assimilated into Jewish culture. Clearly, Israel's immigration process is superior to ours. What harm could have been avoided if we had followed their example? Instead, border patrols at our northern and southern borders encounter over 100,000 lawless entries every 30 days. Around 400,000 are illegally flown in from 4 select countries and delivered per our government to 45 different airports. In the last 3.5 years, approximately 15 million unvetted illegal immigrants, 2 million gotaways, and 380 on the terror watch list are now living amongst us. What could go wrong? Due to language barriers, mental, emotional, and physical health issues attributed to drug abuse, child sex abuse, and trafficking, rape, murder, poor education, no job revenue, no car, no place to live, and just the clothes on their backs, the American taxpayer has become the provider of all their needs. How? Enlarged, invasive government and increased taxes. Sorry about that. Just lost my place. Have you noticed the teacher and healthcare shortage while healthcare costs skyrocket and test scores plummet? Add to this the difficulty in finding men and women to join our police forces only to lose them due to lack of funds for wage increases. Our priorities have shifted from taking care of taxpayer needs, especially our veterans, to creating a nanny state for those who break our laws. Ineptness or deliberate effort to sow division? Perhaps both. As Jesus warns in Matthew 12:25, every kingdom divided against itself is laid waste, and no city or house divided against itself will stand. There are no exceptions. How did we get here? Closing our eyes and ears to painful realities? Unfortunately, the primary focus was on spending tens of millions of taxpayer monies on refurbishing a building, until the $6 million shortage in human services. Solution? Increase the sales tax by 0.5% with a sunset clause. Now, no sunset clause. This would suggest taxes will be drained and budgets strained in the future. Finally, we need strong, informed, focused shepherd leaders who won't allow the sheeple to be fleeced. No more blaming state mandates or political ignorance. We aren't stupid or uninformed, nor do we trust the intellect, morality, and common sense of the current administration in the governor's office. Seriously, free taxpayer-funded abortions and vasectomies at the Democratic National Convention? Please remember, your choices become our consequences, good and bad. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public wishing to speak tonight? Anybody else looking to speak for a third and final time? Seeing none, I will close public input. That will take us into our consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda that any supervisor would like to see removed? Are there any items that you'd like removed from the consent agenda? If not, I'd be looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda. Motion by Supervisor Engelbrecht, second by Supervisor Banky. Clerk will conduct the vote.
Supervisors will now vote on the consent agenda.
All right, and the consent agenda is approved. That'll take us to committee reports. First, we have the Aging and Disability Boards.
Sorry. The ADRC received donations from Lakeshore Community Foundation and St. Thomas the Apostle for nutrition programs. Now they need to do work on the elevator, and so they put an earphone at the entrance by the elevator. In case somebody has trouble coming up the stairs, they can use it, and a staff person will assist them. So when you leave tonight, when you go to the bottom of the steps, look over to your right and you'll see that phone.
Is that the end of your report?
That's it. I'm
Okay.
sorry. Yes,
Thank you.
I'm kind of getting used to this.
Okay, thank you very much. Next up is our Board of Health, Supervisor Metzger.
We met on August 8th. We got a presentation on carbon monoxide. We discussed and had action on accepting the 2024 environmental health taking action with data mini grant funds. We discussed on the proposal resolution that we'll bring up tonight for $10,000 for funds that will provide education and resources to prevent carbon monoxide poisoning in Manitowoc County. For the health officer report, strategic implementation plan has been completed. For the nurse manager report, the communicable disease report, most frequent is chlamydia for June and July. COVID-19 activity is increasing mostly in children under 5 and people over 65. Environmental report, the annual licensing is coming to a close. The WIC report, we had a caseload in July for 1,076. We also had an increased 60 to 70 people participating since May. Our next meeting will be September 12th. And I'd like to bring you to the resolution.
All right, so that's a motion to approve the resolution.
Yes.
I'd be looking for a second. Supervisor Hanson. Any discussion on the resolution? Okay, seeing none, the clerk will conduct the vote.
Supervisors will now vote on the resolution accepting the 2024 environmental health taking action with data mini grant.
And the resolution is approved. Was that the end of your report, Supervisor Metzger? Next is the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, Supervisor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The only thing I have to report is our next meeting, which is dated for September 4th. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I also have a short report for the Executive Committee. There is no report. So that'll take us to the Expo Ice Center Board, Supervisor Benke.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Expo Board met August 7th. A number of different items on their agenda for different things that come up with different situations. You'd be amazed the certain exhibitor can't make it that day, having somebody else substitute, trying to follow the rules, trying to be consistent. So there's a number of those different issues that the Expo Board has to deal with during that time. Also, the working groups are finishing up their work, and I guess just off the cuff, I would encourage those of you that go to the fair, if you see a board member, and most board members that are on the Expo Board have a lanyard, you'll see a lanyard, and they'll be wearing some type of memorabilia on their clothing identifying them as a member of the Expo Board. Thank them. Stop them. Thank you. Thank them for their time. They've been out there lining the parking lots, getting the Egg Adventure tent together. We've been out there all week. Getting the exhibit building. There's a lot of, that building is a mess if you look at it 3 weeks ago. And there's a lot of work moving things around, getting ready for having those 4-H youngsters coming in yesterday to have their items judged. There's a lot of work that goes into that. And I'd just like to encourage you on Saturday, if you're not doing anything, go down to the expo, have yourself a breakfast at the Farm Bureau stand, step on over to the Women's Day event and give Susie Marsh a hard time for emceeing the Women's Day event, to thank her for that volunteer time. And there are volunteer opportunities still available. We're not asking for you to give a whole day. If you could give a couple hours just to hand the things out at the Egg Adventure tent, there's really limited physical effort needed to volunteer for these things. That we just need a body. We need somebody to monitor a gate. We need somebody to just stand there and hand out different string cheese at the Egg Adventure tent. There's a lot of those opportunities still available. Let me know if you're interested. I definitely can hook you up. And come on out to the Manitowoc County Fair. It's a great event, and you'll see a lot of people out there. Weather is looking good, and we look forward to seeing you out. Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor Benke.
Thank you, Supervisor Benke, for bringing up the ladies' event. So on Saturday, yes, indeed, I will be emceeing the Women's Day program. It starts at noon at the Expo Ice Arena. The first 100 ladies will receive a free gift bag, as well as a chance at winning the grand prize of a slatted Mission Solid Oak swing arm lamp table from Schmick's Furniture. People can also bring in non-perishable items and earn tickets for door prizes, or they can make a donation to Peter's Pantry for that also. So come and join me and listen to me talk and talk and talk. Also, regarding the fair, the fair may start tomorrow, but it's been going on this week already. Yesterday, we took our exhibits in. There was a lot going on and a lot of people trying to finish up things, and we're all bringing our stuff in and getting in everybody's way, but it's set up, it's running swiftly. Today was exhibit day, where we're judged. It's just a fun week. I really would like you all to experience it. It's just puts a smile on my face. So hope to see you there. And that ends my speaking right now.
Save your voice for Saturday morning, Susie. All right, next up we have the Finance Committee. Supervisor Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for the support on the resolution denying the claim on the buckled highway, but I guess having that on the agenda is something we all have to think about and pass the word that during the summer, sometimes the highways under the heat will buckle, and that's what happened in this claim, and there's nothing we can do to control the weather. We fix things as soon as we can, but just keep in mind, the weekend's supposed to be hot, so with the sun and everything else, be a little more astute on the road as you're driving. That's from the Finance Committee. Property, we did put something back on the payroll for the city of Two Rivers, sold a piece of property, and hopefully that project will work for the gentleman who bought the property. And finally, at our next finance meeting, we're going to talk a little bit about the budget process and what we can change to hopefully make that a little different than it's been done during the last couple of years. We'll try to get a little bit more input from department heads and people that want to just come in and maybe have something extra that they need in the budget and would like the finance committee to hear about that. So we'll talk about that organization, that change at our next meeting. You're all welcome to be there and give your ideas. Other than that, I've got nothing, Mr. Chairman.
What was the date of that meeting again, Supervisor Hanson?
It's always the first Monday of the month.
The 9th. Thank you.
Second Monday of the month, I'm sorry. I was thinking of another meeting I have. Second, 9th, second Monday of the month, 4:30 at the administration building.
Thank you. Didn't mean to put you on the spot.
That's okay.
All right, next is the Highway Committee. Supervisor Banky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We did not meet in August. We will meet September 10th at 4 p.m. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Human Services Board, Supervisor Bry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Human Services Board will actually be meeting twice this coming Thursday, August 22nd, at the Human Services Boardroom on J Street. First at 4 p.m., we will be having the annual hearing on the Human Services budget. And then immediately afterwards, after that, the meeting is done, the regular monthly meeting will be held. And as most of you won't know, we are considering a resolution regarding mental health and state funding of mental health. I was actually going to talk about it, and to give credit to Chairman Martell, he actually contacted me as well too. So we will be hopefully bringing that resolution back to the county board for a final vote in September. So with that, that's all I have. Thank you again, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Next, we have the Land Conservation and UW Extension Education and Agriculture Committee. Supervisor Ryan Phipps.
Thank you, Chairman Martell. We had a meeting this last Thursday. We kind of went over discussing the budget just to make sure that we're on the right track. We also did some cost-sharing contracts that we approved during that meeting. After the land conservation meeting, then we went into the extension education meeting, and then we had some program highlights, health and well-being educating, also some mental health awareness type things. Our next meeting for the extension education will be October 17th. That will conclude my report.
Thank you. Personnel Committee, Supervisor Marsh.
Thank you. We met on August 6th. I will be bringing a resolution later on, but we also discussed the salary increase for a JDC supervisor because she was making less than some of the people that she supervised. Also, we approved unpaid medical leave for a current highway department employee. And we discussed emergency management and sheriff's department recruitment. Our next meeting will be September 17th before the county board meeting at 5:15. That ends my report.
Thank you. Supervisor Falkowski with Planning and Park Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Park and Planning Commission met on July 22nd. On the docket, it included 3 rezone requests in our consent agenda tonight. Also, we had a subdivision plat review and an industrial park site plan review for consideration. After confirming open meeting law compliance, the Commission started the rezone hearings with the Stephen and Kirsten Linsner Revocable Living Trust from the town of Liberty, then on to Holly Osborne from the town of Michigan, and lastly, Ethan and Kayla Binish from the town of Cooperstown. All the requests were examined under rezone criteria, plus we heard testimony and examined documents of support for each applicant. We discussed them and approved them for the county board's consideration, which you did tonight. Next, we had reviewed and acted on the Sandy Bay Highlands subdivision number 3 and 4 plat review from the town of our city of Two Rivers. This passed unanimously. Finally, on the docket was a discussion and possible action to approve industrial site plan for Thompson Machinery. After discussion and testimony, the motion passed unanimously. That concluded our hearings. Our next meeting is tentatively scheduled for Monday, September 23rd. The advisory meeting starts at 3:30. The hearing starts at 4. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and that is the end of my report. And the next one, public safety. We met on August 14th. We acknowledged the receipt of any correspondence and reports. No questions were offered from the committee members, and there was no public comment registered that day. On the first item on our agenda was the discussion of Resolution 2024-2025-44, a joint resolution with the Personnel Committee. It is on tonight's agenda, item O. Sheriff Hartward gave an overview of the committee and answered any of our questions. After discussion, the committee approved the resolution by unanimous vote. Next, we discussed the committee's outreach project and the organized presentations from the Division of Trade and Consumer Protection presenting common scams and frauds targeting seniors. The committee members were congratulated for establishing their places and times in our county and getting involved with this event. Even though it's Fair Week, you are all invited to attend any of the presentations along with the general public. The first presentation is this Thursday, this week, August 22nd, in room 300 at the County Office Complex, 4319 Expo Drive at 11 a.m. till 12 noon. Later that day in Kiel, at the Kiel Community Center at 510 3rd Street in Kiel, Wisconsin, the next session will be at 5 p.m. Again, it's free to the public and presented by Ben Mertzen, an outreach specialist who has 21 years as a talk show host on Wisconsin Public Radio. His presentations has wide-ranging examples and can be addressed to specific future trends. Also, representatives from law enforcement will be in attendance. Our meeting ended with Sheriff Hartward providing advanced info about the intent to upgrade technology, i.e. body cams, which the county does not have, and the squad cams plus the unlimited cloud storage options he's considering. There will be a demonstration showcasing this technology on September 4th at the Sheriff's Department. He further talked about proposing a new mental health program for the Sheriff's Office and for the staff personnel. These two things are going to be submitted as a budget item for the Sheriff's Office. That concluded our meeting, and our next meeting date is scheduled September 11th at 5 p.m. at the C&T building with the register and probate. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That is the end of my report.
Thank you. Public Works Committee, Supervisor Sikowitz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Public Works Committee met on Wednesday, August 14th. In the Solid Waste and Recycling Division, after reviewing the savings our counties and municipalities are realizing at the Ridgeview landfill through our master solid waste contract and the status of the recycling markets, Recycling Center Manager John Reichenbrecher reported on the outcomes of the 2024 Clean Sweep events. This year we had 536 households, 12 farms, and 15 businesses participate in the program with over 42,000 pounds of hazardous chemicals collected. In the Buildings and Grounds Division, we were updated on the status of the 2024 capital projects. We received a report on the courthouse windows replacement and HVAC systems upgrade project, noting that HVAC work will begin in September and window replacement will be starting after the first of the year. And we approved the pay request for the asphalt maintenance project at the UWGB Manitowoc campus. In the Communications Division, we were updated on the data wiring happening in preparation for the courthouse HVAC and windows replacement project and the upcoming security cameras upgrade project at the County Administration Building. In the IT Division, we were updated on the status of active projects, noting that a major upgrade of the Human Services Department's electronic health records software was completed, as was a mobile records project for the Sheriff's Department. We also reviewed requests for services for the prior month and the latest cybersecurity report. In the Expo Division, we passed the motion supporting the Expo Board's recommendation to the County Executive on the 2025 Expo capital budget, and we reviewed the monthly financial report. This is County Fair Week, and we appreciate all the hard work the Expo Board and all the volunteers put in getting ready for this week and the long hours they put in during the week. The next meeting of the Public Works Committee will be held on Wednesday, September 11th, and that concludes my report.
Thank you. Next is the Transportation Coordinating Committee, Supervisor Hacker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Transportation Coordinating Committee met July 24th to review second quarter 2024 progress and our 2025 through 2028 Coordinated Public Transit Human Services Transportation Plan. State law requires that our coordinated plan be revisited every 5 years, and this must be completed and approved by December 2024. At our meeting April 24th, Brian Dixon of Bay Lakes Regional Planning Commission led the coordinated plan review and discussion. Brian updated the draft per our discussion, and the revised draft was approved at our July 24th, 2024 meeting. Grant proposals for 2024 have been approved, and we've been awarded one of the 2 replacement buses requested for 2024. We continue to wait for the bus awarded in 2023. The bodybuilder, A&J Mobility in Valders, now estimates delivery in late 2024. Ridership continues to rise, with one-way rides in the first half of 2024 up 30% over first half 2023. We did not add any new volunteer drivers in quarter 2, but our driver retention rate is at 100%, with all staff now at 14. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Lastly, we have a resolution out of Personnel and Public Safety. Supervisor Marsh.
Thank you. I would like to bring forth Resolution 2024-2025-44, creating 3.0 full-time equivalent captain positions and eliminating 3.0 full-time equivalent patrol lieutenant positions in the Sheriff's Office. I so move.
Motion and a second by Supervisor Falkowski. Any discussion on the resolution? Seeing none, the clerk will conduct the vote.
Supervisors will now vote on the resolution creating 3 full-time equivalent captain positions and eliminating 3 full-time equivalent patrol lieutenant positions in the Sheriff's Office.
And the resolution is approved. That will into announcements. And Supervisor Engelbrecht, you have an announcement?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I don't know if anybody who got these postcards in the mail, but there's a agricultural community engagement coalition, or I don't know what you want to call it, committee. It's made up of PDPW, the Professional Dairy Producers, Wisconsin Counties Association, and the Wisconsin Towns Association. And they put on 4 twilight meetings throughout the state, and one happens to be in our neighboring county in Kewanee on Wednesday, August 28th at Pagels Ponderosa. There's a dairy tour that starts at 6 p.m. and I understand, I think they're going to have those people trams, what they usually at the breakfast on the farm, so there won't be a whole lot of walking, and followed by an ice cream at 7 o'clock, and then open discussion until about 8:30. You can ask any questions you want of the Pagels or anybody else that's there from the county association or the towns association. I believe they have a digester there, so it might be interesting to also see. It states on here we have a $105 billion industry in Wisconsin, and that's the value of the agriculture industry. And so I think it's important that as elected officials we go there and see what it's all about. They use our roads, our county trunks, and our state highways to haul in their feed and haul their milk out, and so I think it's an opportunity. So if you have that evening free, it's not that far. I think you can take County Highway C out of Kewanee, or I believe you can take County Trunk B out of downtown Tisch Mills and go north. So hope to see many of you there. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other announcements? I just have one that our next meeting is September 17th at 6 o'clock. With that, I'd be looking for a motion to adjourn by Supervisor Bry. We are adjourned.